Welcome to Serving Pancakes with League One Volleyball. I'm your host, Tiffany Oshinsky, and I'm inviting you to join me as I go behind the scenes with some of the most important people in volleyball. From funny anecdotes to words of wisdom and some fun facts sprinkled in about your favorite sport, Serving Pancakes will satiate your appetite and have you asking for seconds. So take a seat while I serve you up some pancakes. Hi, Justine.
Hi.
Welcome. It was good to see you. Have a seat.
Thank you.
Welcome to breakfast at Tiffany's. No, I'm just kidding.
It was amazing.
Well, welcome. Enjoy some pancakes. How do you like your pancakes?
Ooh, I'm a simple girly, just like syrup and maybe a little bit of chocolate chips, but that's about it.
All right, let's get to it. You know what? I love chocolate chips, but I also like including with strawberries, kind of like a chocolate-covered strawberry pancake.
Okay.
Did you used to eat pancakes growing up at all?
I did. Actually, my mom always made chocolate chip pancakes, so that's like a childhood memory for sure.
Oh, I love that. How many did she make? Because I have 2 kids, and they get mad if I only give them like 2, so I have to make a stack of them.
Yeah. She always made a stack, and then my brother and I would always just eat what was left. And she did a really good job of just making it in bulk, and then we would just eat as a family a lot of pancakes.
Oh, it's a good little family tradition, breakfast thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So going back to growing up, I have to ask, I want to start at the very beginning, which is, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So first, I wanted to be a teacher. I think with my mom being in that education field, I always saw her as going to school. And I think for me, relating to kids was like always something that I was pretty natural at, whether that was like, taking care of kids. All of my mom's friends, they were all like, I was the oldest. And so all of the younger kids, they were like, can you babysit? And I was like, I would love to. And so that always came pretty natural. And then I kind of tied that into sport. And so it was always like a camp or a clinic and helping with all the young ones. That was always super fun for me and really connecting. So both like, with sport and then off the court, love kids. And I think, so growing up, I was like, being a teacher, that seems pretty natural to go into that direction.
What was your go-to babysitting game, sport, the thing that made the kids want you as their babysitter?
I think just being outside. Like I was always wanting to play tag with them. If they wanted to play volleyball, I would love to show them. Playing, basketball, just being active and being outside. I think that was what I was good at. Is just like, some people are like, okay, they can just kind of chill, watch TV, but like I love to be outside. And so that was fun because whenever my mom and like their parents were playing volleyball, we would go in like the other, whether it was outside or the other court, and we were always just playing with the ball or playing soccer or whatever it was.
And the parents must have loved it too, because they just wanted to go to bed at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. Tire them out real quick. Yeah.
So how did you get into volleyball?
Both of my parents played. So they both played at the collegiate level in some capacity. And so for me to watch up and grow up with them, I feel like I was always surrounded by it. And they did a really nice job of kind of laying it out there for us to compete, both my brother and I. But it was never like, oh, you should play this, or it would be nice if you would play this. It just was very natural. And I grew up around it. And so I grew to love it at such a young age. And I think that's what was the most special, because I could have a connection to the sport, but to my parents too.
Right.
Because they were always supporting me at the tournaments, at practices, and they knew the game really well. So I could always bounce ideas off of them and see where their head was at when I was growing up and playing. And it was just fun to have that support throughout, my childhood up until now.
So going back even farther, I want to see if you know the true romance of your parents. They both played in college. So how did they meet? Did they meet in college playing each other?
They played in a league. California is like pretty notorious for like all of these like rec leagues happening, and it's really cool because they played a lot with their friends too. And so that goes back to like all of the babysitting duties that I had. And so they met at a volleyball league in Tustin, and so super local. And and they met, and then the rest is history. Had me and my brother, and it's just very fun because all of us have played volleyball at some point in our lives, and I think that's like really cool that we have that that time to connect with each other and just be able to support and like show up for one another too.
Did they know about the club scene and stuff when they were growing up? Were they aware of how the time commitment, the travel, all of that?
Right. Yeah. So my dad actually coached for Mizuno Long Beach, current Love Club. And so it was nice to have that kind of connection to the club because I really didn't know, like, being in Southern California, there's so many clubs that you can choose from. And so having that, connection right off the bat was very helpful. And so Joy and Matt Fearbringer, who were the directors of the club, still are. And they were like, yeah, bring her on by. And so I started at a very young age. I started at 8 years old and going into club, and there was a 12 and under group, and I actually played 12 and under for 4 years. I was so young, so I was just playing for, up until I turned 12, and it was very fun because I think 1 year actually my dad got to coach me. Aww. And it was always, like that weird feeling of like not wanting to be favored, but also like having that, soft spot for your daughter. And it was really cool because you got to meet a lot of people, and like just club is just such a unique kind of community because you're with each other for like 8 months out of the year, and you're traveling to all these tournaments and practicing basically every other day. And so to have both my parents be there for a good chunk of it was really fun, and also to just know a lot of people from it and grow up with them. Like I think I had a few girls that we stayed from like basically 12 until 18s. Wow. And that's pretty unique to have. And so it was very fun. And a lot of them I still keep in touch with, which is nice.
You also played beach though.
I did.
So did you start indoor or did you start beach?
I started indoor first, and then that following summer I started beach. It was kind of like one season, indoor, and then going into the summer was beach. So it was basically all year round volleyball, which I loved. I loved just being in the gym or being on the beach. And so I feel like it was also a great change up, being indoor and then playing on the beach is such a different atmosphere, and it's honestly such a different game. And so for me, it just taught me a lot of like well-roundedness, kind of seeing a lot of different parts of the game and kind of bettering each skill. So I really enjoyed my time in like doing both sports because I think it was super important for my kind of overall ability to see the game and to read the game.
So I started club when I was 12. I played, through a Wii team and everything too. Yeah. But I remember when I was 14, I said to myself, well, I'm a really good indoor player, so I can play beach. And I went... I was in California for a trip, and I went out and tried to play, and I was dying, absolutely dying. I can't handle the stamina. So, I mean, you learn a lot from playing beach versus indoor, but did you find one to be particularly harder, one that you enjoyed more?
I would say the hardest part of beach volleyball is just there's two people out there, so there's no really hiding. Everyone or both of you guys have to do all of the skills. You have to pass that hit, and I think that just teaches a lot of people about reading the game and also how to be good at each skill. And so I think for me, getting exposed to beach volleyball at such a young age actually taught me a lot, and also about, stamina and being like, I felt like every time I transitioned from beach to indoor, I felt faster. I was jumping higher just because the sand just creates a lot of difficulty to move. And so it was honestly really good cross training.
Did you find yourself teaching the younger kids how to play, or were you involved in any of that since you did enjoy being with kids?
So at Mizuno, we had this one team, it was called Beach Babes, and they were like, I think they could start as young as they wanted, and they went up to 10. And so we always had like at least each team had to do one tournament of Beach Babes, of like helping out, coaching, just kind of being there, mentoring. And it was so cute because they're playing with those light balls, and they're usually playing like from the 10th line to like half court. It was such a great way to like connect with the younger athletes and show them a thing or two, but also just to grow the game, because I think, when you're starting at that young of an age, it's so fun to be able to see the older girls and also see that they care about you and want to support you. And I think that's one thing that Mizuno Long Beach did a great job of, is just creating a family environment. And you felt that from 12 and unders to 18 and unders.
That's why California's so good at volleyball. So let me ask you, when you got to club and high school, what position were you?
I was a setter.
Okay.
Yeah.
So were you running a 5'1" or a 6'2"?
I ran a 5'1" actually up until my senior year.
Real quick before, since, there are people who are watching this, listening to this who don't know volleyball, can you explain what a 5'1" is versus a 6'2"?
Yeah, 5'1" is when the setter just comes from the back row, setting from the back row all the way through the front row. And then 6'2" is just when the setter's setting from the back row. And then typically an opposite that's coming in, and then they do like a double sub, and they're able to only set from the back row. So you're always having 3 attackers.
So you played 5'1". So I'm short. I know you're 5'6".
Yeah.
Short people, some love right here.
Yeah.
When you were in the front row, did you struggle at all, or were you working hard? Did the beach in the sand get you to jump high and help with blocking and everything?
Yeah, I feel like honestly that was one thing that I had to really overcome is, the height and the disadvantage that I had. And so I feel like honestly that was one thing that beach helped me with, was just the vertical and just trying to at least put some sort of hands above the block. But we did a really good job of, my coach, JP Calderon, he did a good job of he made sure that no matter what position you were doing all of the skills. So if you were a middle blocker, you're involved in defense, passing. And so I feel like that, honestly, we had a really good ball control team. And so it was kind of filling gaps where it was needed on that team from 16s, because my 16, 17, 18s year was the same team. And so we kind of knew each other, and we did a really good job of, training everything. And I think that's so important as a young athlete, is not to put yourself in a box and specialize in one position. I think, of course, when you're getting to recruitment time and you're starting to look for colleges, yes, you can have a specific position that you want to go for, but when you're 10, 11, 12, play all the positions. Enjoy and try to do everything you can, because I think that's what's going to make you a really good volleyball player down the road.
And recruiting was a little tough for you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I had the same issue.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's your story with recruiting and how you ended up at Nebraska?
So I was mainly looking at a lot of local schools in California as a setter. As a back row setter, maybe a DS. And what's funny is that going into my junior year of club, we were at nationals, and my coach randomly, it was never a conversation. He just was like, we need you to go to play Libero because we need some passing. And so I was freaking out because first of all, I didn't bring my other jersey, because normally at every club tournament, they're bring both jerseys just in case. I was the one that did not. And so I ended up having to borrow a Libero jersey from a different team. And then it worked out. I was playing Libero for that tournament, and Nebraska was, kind of roaming the courts, and they saw me play. And then after that tournament, we ended up talking and setting up an official visit, because after that junior season was into my senior year. So I was pretty late in the recruitment, period. And so I was a senior when I committed to Nebraska, and with no Libero experience at all. And so that was honestly such a kind of mental block, because for me, I'm thinking I need to chase and catch up with every other Libero in the Big Ten that's been playing for however many years. But I really do credit that to beach volleyball, because I think without beach, I wouldn't have had all of the skills and the, just the awareness, the court awareness that beach volleyball gives. I was at a good starting point, but of course I wanted to do more and have more experience in that position. So yeah, that was a fun time though. I'm so happy for my experience and how club all ended up and just that whole story. But it was just so funny how my coach was randomly, it was never a question or never a conversation of hey, we're thinking of playing you Libero. It was just hey, you're going in there.
Get that jersey.
Right.
And for those who are watching and don't know what a Libero is, Libero wears a different colored jersey.
Yes.
It's called Libero. It's Italian for free. So that's why they go in and out without any subs. So when I played in high school, I was actually an outside hitter.
Okay.
At 5'3"1/4. And I always add that quarter in there.
Right. You have to.
That extra height. When it came to club, all of my teammates were 5'10" or taller.
Yeah.
So I was put as Libero.
Uh-huh.
And I just remember at first hating it, because I'm like, you just want people to hit balls at me, basically.
Yeah.
I'm the person that they're just aiming for. But I loved it.
Yeah.
So when you transitioned from setter to libero, did you love it, like in college, or were you kind of nervous because college is a different level?
Yeah, for me, I was excited to play libero because I did love, the defensive aspect. Like, I felt like I was, as a setter, I loved to play defense. Like, that was the one thing I was like, I love playing, and I took pride in playing defense. And so that part I was like pretty confident in. I think it was more the serve reception part and not having as many repetitions as maybe other liberos had. And so that was the struggle for me, is like, how do I take up space in the serve receive portion of it? And that's like a really tough space to be in because, that's the first contact, and honestly, you're setting it up for all of the offense to be successful. And so my first couple of years at Nebraska, I think that was the biggest struggle for me to kind of overcome, is like, how can I be good at, serve receiving, but also be able to like take up more space, because as a libero, they're not serving you as much, but how do you relieve some of your hitters and other attackers to do what they're, doing best? And I think that was the major change for me, is like, how can I give in other ways that, as a setter, you're touching every other contact. You're very involved in the play, and you're leading the charge, leading the offense. And libero is kind of like a different way. I've had to learn how to lead in a different way. And I think mainly in that way, I was using my voice and just directing traffic and seeing how I can be big for other people. And so, yeah, I've learned that over my career, and that was definitely a transition. But over the years, trial and error, and just with different teammates too, you learn about different teammates and how you can give to them and how you can add in any way.
Well, it paid off. You were the all-time dibs leader at Nebraska, so I think you figured it out pretty well. So when you were in college, did you have any idea that you wanted to keep playing and go pro or play on the U.S. women's national team? Was that the dream?
As I got older into my career, I was getting more confident. I think for me, confidence was like a big issue at Nebraska. And the more and more I saw myself getting more confident, I was like, well, I feel like I have more to give. And so after, my senior year, that's when Karch had reached out and invited me to the national team gym, and I was all for it. I mean, I was honored to even like be able to like be seen in that, kind of radar. And so for me, I was like, yeah, 100%, I'm ready. And also that was a huge transition too, from the college game to the international game. But, with the help of like so many coaches and teammates, I think it's been, a lot of learning and growing, and it's been really fun.
What was the transition like? What's the big difference between college and international?
I think the speed of the game, like I think you see in the college game, there are a lot of offenses that are really speeding up. But from Nebraska to my first year in the national team gym, the speed of which we were setting the ball was fast. And so I was like, wow, my wheels are turning. I'm just like trying to get my bearings down. But the first year was, and I think it was also a lot of turnover with personnel in the gym. A lot of people were retiring or also taking time off for the first part of the summer. And so there were a lot of opportunities for starting spots. And so I think with that and a new quad, I think that just, kind of added a little bit of pressure, because there's a lot of newbies that are wanting to take some starting spots. And so it was really fun to like get to know a lot of girls that you've played with or played against in the college game. And then now to be able to be teammates and just learn with one another and see the different types of play that we're all, invited to the national team gym, and then kind of like putting all the puzzle pieces together.
I kind of had that a little bit with club, because my club was based in Philadelphia, and I was an hour north of Philly. Yeah. So they combined a lot of girls from all over. And I just remember playing one girl from a different high school, and we used to call her the robot, because she was so mechanical in everything she did. She would crush us. Like her kills, she could find the hole every single time. And then she ended up on my team, and I was like, you're the robot. Yeah. Did you ever find that, like, when you're playing these girls, you had nicknames for them or anything like that, where you're like, oh my God, all of a sudden now I'm your teammate? Did you know that I used to know you as this?
Not necessarily nicknames, but it's just like you see, especially like if you're playing in the same conference, you play them like at least twice a year. And so it's so funny to be able to like scout them, and then now you're sitting on the same side and playing with one another. I think it's almost like a sigh of relief because you're like, okay,
she's on my team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you were on the U.S. women's team. You joined in 2018, correct?
2017. Mm-hmm.
So how did the transition go from when you joined the U.S. women's team to finding out that you were going to be going to the Olympics in Tokyo?
Yeah. It was honestly a very long process because, with COVID and just the postponement of the Olympics, for me, it was a very big blessing in disguise because I feel like I could have been ready if it were to happen in 2020. But I think with the extra year, like it allowed me to really get my goals in alignment and just also like put in the work. And I think we did a lot of self-reflection as individuals, but then also as a team. Like we were working a lot about our team culture and the dynamics and just how we can be better going into the Olympics. And with such a short season, what was very unique is that we played in a bubble with VNL in 2021. And so I felt like that allowed us to be super, super close with one another. And it was so cool because it was obviously a very hard time with, the Olympic roster coming out, and then we were still in the bubble and there were cuts being made. But I think the way that people handled it with such grace and with just very, very such professionalism, like everyone embraced their roles and just whatever was given to the team, like they gave to the team with 100%. And I think going into the games, we were so close-knit and tight-knit to each other that it felt like nothing could stop us. Like, I really, truly believe because we had put in so much work off the court, like with Zoom meetings and with our sports psych and just with each other, we learned how to communicate with each other and just what could we give to one another. And I think that helped us a lot on the court.
So during that COVID year when you guys weren't together,
yeah,
were you practicing at home and training at home solo, or were you able to do anything with your team?
So at first, I would say in May, it was still shut down. So a lot of us were still at our homes and we were doing workouts like wherever we could do them, honestly, whether it was outside in a garage. Like I remember Jordan Thompson she was in Minnesota at the time and it was snowing. And so she was like in like her parka, like still getting her workouts in because we were doing Zoom workouts. And so it was so funny. And I think that was like a huge like testament as to like how much we wanted it. We were still putting in the work because there was still a possibility of the Olympics maybe happening. And also we were kind of waiting to see if Karch would say if the ASC was going to be open, our training facility. And so I think it was around June 1st that we got the green light to come train. And so it was optional for some people to either stay at home or come into Anaheim and train. And so I think we had like a small group of like 8 just training and trying to get some work done. And then everyone went into their pro seasons pretty early since we had no national team. And then it was just, one year of work. And then we got the call to come back and everything was as normal as it could be with COVID still happening, but with the Olympics being in that year.
I want to get to your pros in just a second, but I have to ask what went through your mind when you found out that you are the libero for U.S. women's national team?
Very emotional. I will say my journey has not been easy, like whatsoever. I've been cut from teams. I've made teams. I've been the starter. I've been a non-starter. And so for me to like say that I made the Olympics, like I immediately started crying. I was so emotional. And I think it was just emotional because like I figured it out. It was a lot of self-reflection. Of course, help with my family and my teammates and coaches. Like everyone's been there for me. And I feel like everyone's given me resources to get there. It was just, how can I figure it out? And so honestly, it was such a relief, and it was just like so rewarding to hear that. And it was crazy because we were in the bubble, and so we couldn't like immediately go like tell a teammate or anything because still people were finding out if they had made it or not. And so I called my mom, and then I called my fiance, and I was trying to be like extra quiet about it because it was just such a, very, very, it was just a weird time. And it was different than it ever had been. It was very unique. But it was, a lot of emotions for sure.
Well, I was like holding back emotions a little bit. You can't say anything just yet.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so exciting, though. You're like, I mean, you were the best libero in the United States. That's basically what it comes down to, which is amazing.
Thank you.
So when you got to Tokyo in 2020, no fans, right?
Yeah.
And so I know that at the time of this recording, the roster is not out for Paris.
Yeah.
But Paris is going to be full of spectators.
Right.
So what was it like playing with no fans? And what do you kind of think it will be like to play in Paris with fans?
I think it's going to be very different. I think, honestly, having no fans was like one less distraction, especially a lot of us were like newcomers to the Olympics. I mean, there are a lot of venues that we've played in a lot of different countries that we've played in that have a lot of fans. Like, when we go to Brazil, they're always showing up for their team, and same in Japan, same in, honestly, Arlington last year at VNL was a huge turnout. So I think we've definitely had experiences where we've played in full crowds. It's just, when it's the Olympics, it's the biggest stage possible. So that obviously adds a layer of pressure. So I think what we'll be good about is just front loading that and just really trying to be good for each other. A lot of eye contact, a lot of hand contact, I think typically is really good for us. And just knowing that, like, there are people that will be there. And so how can we help those that have maybe not been there?
What do you do on those long flights? Like, what do you read? Do you watch tape? Or you're like picking at the TV on the back of the chairs?
Honestly, I'm really good about sleeping on the flight. So as much sleep as I can get, I'll sleep. And then a lot of us watch movies, and a lot of us, we have a lot of readers on the team. So either a book or their Kindle they'll bring.
You a reader?
Yeah.
What's like your go-to genre?
I love a good romance book.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What is it about a romance? I'm not into romance books. I don't know what it is, but what do you love about them?
I don't know, just like the fantasy of it all, maybe.
The love.
Yeah, romance. I've read like a thriller here and there. I have to be careful of when I'm reading that because I'm like late at night. I'm like, no, thank you.
Is your fiance romantic?
He can be. He can be. Yeah.
What's the most romantic thing he's done?
A few years ago, he did. So unfortunately, we're never together for Valentine's Day because I'm always overseas. And so last year when I was in France, he had all of us actually stayed in the same like complex. So one of my teammates that I was pretty close to, he reached out to her. And so he had it arranged with like flowers, champagne, chocolates. Aww. And so she was like, go upstairs real quick. I'm going to set something up. And so she put it on the table for me and was like, this is from Andrew. So that was really sweet. He's pretty good about that, like reaching out to a teammate if it's like a big, holiday or like anniversary or something.
Well, next year you're going to be part of Love and you're going to be here in the States. So you get to celebrate.
Yeah, he better fly to Nebraska.
Yeah, that's a lot easier of a trip than Germany.
Yeah, for sure.
So real quick, going to your pro league, what was it like playing internationally versus internationally with the U.S. team?
It's pretty different. I think just the lifestyle and also the language barrier for sure is it sometimes, in Germany, for example, actually I would say in France too, everyone speaks English. It's just how you go into a practice or how maybe systems are differently. And so I think that's been the biggest differentiator with like being, home with Americans and then also being overseas with just a lot of international players is just how we approach things. And I think that's been kind of tough to overcome at some points and at some in some seasons because you're not going to have the same outlook as maybe a Serbian or Hungarian, and that's fine, but it's just how can we collaborate and get on a common ground. But it's very fun because you meet so many different people that maybe you wouldn't have meet in like normal jobs, and so and it's so fun to be able to establish those relationships. And also like down the road, they're like, hey, like, can I come visit you in California or vice versa? Like, can I come visit you in Hungary? And so I think that's always fun to make those relationships and also keep them.
Oh, for sure. And then I feel like all the different cultures and all the different food that they can make and you get to experience.
That's so fun. Yeah, we had that one time. We actually had a Thanksgiving this past year, and we had some girls like bring stuff like from their own culture, and that was super fun. Super fun because they're like, "What is Thanksgiving?" Like we've never heard of it. Or like basically we just make a bunch of food and eat.
Yeah. Some people came over and found a rock and became friends.
Yeah, exactly.
What did they make?
There was our setter made moussaka. It's basically like a lasagna, but with a lot of different like Mediterranean vegetables. Oh. It was super yummy.
So coming back to love being here in the States,
yeah.
What are you looking forward to the most now that you're going to be playing professionally here?
Yeah, I think getting more opportunities to play in front of friends and family. And with that, I think also like spreading the word about professional volleyball. I think like at least when I was younger, like I didn't know where to go for pro volleyball, like what that might even look like. And so I think spreading that awareness to the young athletes and knowing that, you know, if they do want to do this in the later years, it's there for them. And just connecting, you know, the pro to the youth is going to be, I think for me, I'm really excited about that part.
And your former club team is a love team also, so it's like all full circle, right?
I know. I'm really excited to go back to Omaha.
Speaking of Nebraska real quick, because Nebraska just had that record-setting,
oh my gosh,
world record-setting appearance, you know, most people had attendance at a women's sporting event. Did you ever imagine at some point that could have happened when you were playing?
No. Oh my gosh. I'm like, no, but also I'm not surprised that Nebraska was able to pull that off because the state of Nebraska is so invested in volleyball, but also like the sports in general. And I think when I was there, like you could feel that as an athlete, you could really feel that support. And I think they're like all for everything that's, you know, about to come. And so I think that's the most special part is like including them, you know, with love and being able to play in front of them and just see what we can do for the sport.
So speaking about you personally, what do you hope that your legacy as a volleyball player will be?
I would love to just hopefully like inspire the young athletes, like I said, because I think coming from a club, Mizuno Long Beach, and having that family environment, like I want that for the young athletes. I want them to be like, oh, you know, love Omaha athlete, came to my practice and was able to mentor me. And so I think for me, that's the biggest thing is just being able to pass it down to the younger athletes for sure.
And what do you hope volleyball will be in 5-10 years?
Oh my gosh. I hope we have a love team in every state and, you know, we're able to do this long term and who knows, like I'm down to play it for as long as I can now. If we have volleyball in America, like I can see people prolonging their career. And also I think it's really cool that like even Europeans and other countries are able to come because I think when they hear about America and volleyball in the same sentence, they're like so for it.
What advice do you have for girls who are coming up, but also since your parents were so involved in the sport, what advice do you have for parents who are dealing with kids or who have kids who want to pursue this?
I would just say for the parents, like as long as they want it, like keep on encouraging them to do it because I think for me, like I've always had that and I've always like felt supported and even if it wasn't volleyball, like they were going to support me no matter what. And so I think that's always a good feeling to have, especially when you're younger. And as a young athlete, I would just say like I would encourage them to keep playing every position in volleyball. Also play all the sports that you can. I think, you know, a lot of young kids, they just like really get put in a box. And I think down the road, that's only going to limit them. And I feel like as we grow the sport and we're trying to, you know, bring the international game here to America, there's going to be just less substitutions, for example. And I think the game is going to evolve. And so as long as you can really be well-rounded and see yourself, you know, doing multiple positions for as long as you can, I think that's only going to enhance your career and make you a better volleyball player.
Well, Justine, thank you so much for joining me for Pink.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching Serving Pancakes. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. You can also listen to the podcast version on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.